Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, afternoon, everyone, and good morning for those that might be joining us from the West Coast or somewhere else in the world. This is our second VR-related webinar of the week, our third in 2 weeks. We're ramping up our educational content and working on scheduling our next few. Today we have with us Ben Barone, who is co-founder and CEO of CORTEX. CoreSites trains athletes, students, and professionals to improve focus, maintain composure, and enhance performance under pressure. I met Ben a couple months ago here in Washington, where he was based up until a week ago, and he is now relocated to Brooklyn. And it seems like he's been moving full steam ahead in a very short period of time. So I'm interested to hear what the latest is. And Ben is going to take us through the product and the platform and the cross section of health performance and VR. So Ben, I'm going to make you the presenter. Second. Okay. So Ben, the floor is yours, and go ahead and put your, yep, perfect.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'm really excited to be talking to everyone today and sharing a bit of what I've learned in a bit of a mix of fields, a little interdisciplinary here. CoreSites is a virtual reality training platform that integrates biofeedback directly into the training. So the big purpose here is to put you in simulated environments that are high pressure and quantify your stress response, be able to measure how your specific body shifts from its baseline under stress, and then teach you skills and techniques that are used by Olympic athletes, special forces military, top executives around the world to really hone in, calm the body, and focus the mind so you can perform at your best level. Because often the thing that gets in the way at the highest level of sport, academics, work, and life is your mind. And so if you can quantify that, see the data, and learn to control it, you're really in a much more powerful position. So, take you through a quick roadmap here. We're going to briefly touch on who we are as a company and our story before going into what we see as the big problem when it comes to this type of training in the current market, how we see the solution, and how virtual reality and biofeedback merge together to offer really pretty unique training platform. At the end, we'll follow up with how we deliver our services, both as a model for other people and to give you an idea of what we offer. So to start you off, my name is Ben Barone. As I said, I have a master's in sport and performance psychology out of the University of Denver. I was trained there to work with elite athletes in a variety of different fields. Initially in skiing, I worked with a pre-Olympic ski team for 2 years out in Colorado. And at the end of my program, I was very fortunate to be part of a partnership with the Olympic Training Center, where I was initially taught many of the biofeedback skills I still use today. So I'll dive a little bit into some of those stories in a bit. But throughout the past 5 years, my work has exclusively been in improving performance with mental skills training, biofeedback, and now virtual reality. But I'm not doing it alone right now. I have a team of really amazing people that are working with me that are here on the screen. 2 of them have really deep backgrounds in consulting, having a lot of experience, 5 years at Deloitte Consulting before forming their own ventures. And that's Kevin and Shay. They head up product development, so helping me take the content that I've accrued throughout my career and design it and implement it and develop it into virtual and mobile applications so that we can get the training out on a scalable level. Because our goal is to help as many people as we can. And the unique thing about what we're attacking is that it's not unique. Everyone shares it, everyone deals with stress or pressure at some point. Everyone's mind gets in the way of their performance. So we really see just an unlimited number of people we want to help. And Toby is just a fantastic, fantastic data scientist with an applied math degree out of Columbia, currently works at MIT, and he's been able to integrate a lot of these solutions through technologies that really were challenging to me, but have been just such a breeze and a pleasure to work with him. So before I go into the problem a little bit, I'm going to back up and just give you a slight bit more background. I want to talk to you about one story at the Olympic Training Center where we were first brought in, and we were working with our Olympic pistol shooters in Colorado Springs. And we had them hooked up to 3 different sensors at once. We were hooking them up to brainwave sensors, so we were measuring the firing of their brain, heart rate, and breathing. And for Olympic pistol shooters, it's extremely crucial to get very focused in a very short amount of time. Once they raise their gun in Olympic trials, they have 30 seconds to fire, and there's really not a lot of room for error. So what we were able to do was, based on research in EEG and psychophysiology training, isolate out certain brain waves, slow brain waves in the front of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that get in the way of focus. So the brainwave in particular that we were training is the theta brainwave. In the literature, this is the second fastest brainwave. Delta's second slowest. The slowest is delta. That's what you see during sleep. Super slow, 1 to 4 times a second the wave fires. And then theta is a little faster, 4 to 8 times a second. That is like the feeling you get right when you wake up and you're pretty groggy. And so that's not a great brainwave to be dominating right before you fire a gun in Olympic trials. So what we would do is we would actually tack that brainwave in real time on a computer screen in front of the athlete to a bar graph. We'd get their baseline number, and then we'd drop it down a threshold about 80% of their baseline, and we'd say, okay, I want you to decrease that slow brainwave. I want you to actually change your brainwaves for the first time, and if you drop it down below that marker, you're going to hear music start to play, or you're going to see this video start to play on the screen. And so relying on 2 of the big principles from learning theory, classical conditioning and operant conditioning, classical conditioning being that Pavlov's dog example where Pavlov rings the bell and feeds the dog, and rings the bell and feeds the dog, and then pretty soon he's able to ring the bell and the dog starts to salivate as if he's eating. You build in an association in the mind, and so when the athlete was able to decrease their brainwaves below the mark we had set, they would hear the music and pair that sound with that skill. And after enough repetitions, we were able to take away the feedback and say, okay, I want you to go, do it now without any sound, without any music, we'll watch the screen. And they would instantly drop it down and hover it much lower. And so then we would set bigger goals. Okay, we want you to drop it down below 60%, 40%, and that's operant conditioning. When you reward someone for meeting a new goal and increase the behavior, that's operant conditioning. And so those 2 together are very, very powerful. And anyone who's interested in that type of learning theory or the process of biofeedback on a more technical level can absolutely follow up with me. I'll be putting my contact information at the end. But to move on to what we're doing now, we're really focusing on what we think is the biggest problem, which is stress. Stress impacts over 80% of Americans, and 50% report that they want help, that they do not have the tools currently to manage it. It's estimated that the price tag for U.S. industry from stress is $300 billion of cost. That's due to things like absenteeism, health effects. People lose so many sick days due to stress, decreased productivity, all these factors that, often people go to the doctor or they seek other methods of help, and really, we're treating symptoms, but we're not alleviating the core issue, which is stress. So we see a dire need for more effective training programs. We're in a very interesting time where wearable technology very recently has become very big through the Fitbits and the Apple Watches of the world, but we're still seeing reports of over 1/3 of wearable tech users dropping their devices after a month. that these devices for a lot of people are very helpful, but still there's a big sector of people who want them that don't stick with them. And we believe the reason for that is they're just not engaging enough. And so we think there's a better way to engage the human being in terms of improving performance, enhancing wellness, and decreasing that stress. So our solution is a platform where you train in virtual reality to reduce your stress using the biofeedback that quantifies it. You can track your progress because you actually know how effective you've been. You know whether you've hit the goals. Something that's missing from a lot of performance training right now, and something we haven't been able to really do in this way until very recently. Consumer headsets hit the market, a little over a year ago, and just now are these things able to be accessible all the way from the top products of HTC Vive or Oculus Rift down to the Samsung Gear VR down to Google Cardboard, where anyone can put their smartphone that has one into a $5 to $10 piece of cardboard and be in virtual reality. So we're pretty excited about the accessibility of this platform and the range of options we can offer people. So let's talk a little bit about biofeedback, what that really looks like, what that really is. On the screen here is one of my training slides that I've used throughout the past several years with the same equipment from the Olympic Training Center that isolates to me the most important physiological systems as they relate to performance and stress. And when I say physiology, I'm referring to the term for physiology means living systems of the body. So heart rate, breathing, those type of things, and we can see those on the screen. In the middle, that red jagged line is the heart rate of someone over 5 minutes of time. That blue wavy line on that same middle graph is breathing. So every time someone breathes in, right at the beginning, you can see a big spike up. That's a breath in, and out is a drop down. So we can track the breathing, all sorts of things related to how fast you're breathing, how much you're breathing. If you think about any time you've been under a lot of pressure, super stressed, what's your breathing like? It's usually a big hold or a hyperventilated breathing. That has such a ripple effect throughout your physiology. It's really quite amazing, and we'll talk a little bit more into that. On the top graph, we have muscle tension from someone's forehead. So there's actually a sensor sitting on the forehead that measures the electrical firing of the muscle. And you can see in the middle, right around that 450 mark to 550, quite a bit of activation there. This person was in a high-stress simulator and was a little uncomfortable. And so we can see that very, very clearly. Likewise, down below, that yellow bar and trend line over time, both those yellow bar and line are representing sweat output from someone's hand. So every time you see a little jagged mark up, that is a sweat response. And this person is sitting still in a chair, so the only thing that's prompting the response is a fearful moment. Something happens, whether a spider crawls on them in VR, or they're in a glass elevator looking down and it starts to break down. That tends to spike up. Maybe we put them on stage and they're in front of an audience giving a speech, and the audience members start asking questions. Is this your first time giving the speech? And we see a pretty big spike. Temperature is the last measure we'll talk about right now, and that is that that orange bar and line on the right, bottom right. With temperature, normal, non-stressed is around 85, 86. So you can see this person is significantly below that, and in the graph over time we've seen a pretty big drop off in the temperature. So the sweat has been increasing and the temperature's been dropping off. I like to talk about sweat and temp when I talk about fight or flight stress response, because they're so evolutionarily effective at maintaining survival, in the sense that when we get really nervous, we think there's a threat, right? That something's coming to attack us or harm us. Our body produces sweat so that we become slippery. And if something were to grab us, we can more easily slip away. Likewise, our temperature in our hands decreases because the blood vessels in our hands and feet, in our extremities, actually close down. They get smaller and they decrease circulation, and they send more blood back to your core. So that if you're running into a tiger back in the day, you have more energy to fight that tiger or to run away. That's awesome for tigers. That's really not awesome if you're trying to give a webinar or a presentation or speak up in a meeting at work or take a big test or catch the game-winning touchdown. Losing blood in your hands isn't the best for catching a football or doing a lot of other things. So learning to identify when that's happening, some people listening may have already experienced cold hands or feet when they're nervous. That is actually that physiological process of your body decreasing blood flow to your hands. Another side benefit being that if the tiger were to scratch you on your arm, which is most likely to be closest to it as you're fighting it or trying to get away, you wouldn't bleed out as quickly. So again, super awesome to survive back in the day, but something we want to be more aware of and able to control today. And so that is biofeedback, showing someone either through a display or through sound changes in their underlying physiology and helping them to understand that their stress, pressure, this mental effect is not just mental. It is a mind-body system, and it's equally physical. And by changing the physical, you can change the mental. So we took a step further, and this is me at the MIT conference a couple weeks ago on augmented reality and virtual reality. And here I'm doing a live stage demo where I'm showing one of our courtroom simulators. We've done a lot of work with lawyers that's been very successful. And in this courtroom, we have this big, bright, distracting ball below the heart rate panel here. And you can see heart rate at this moment was 107 beats per minute, and the ball is super bright. Now, after our training, you learn how to bring your heart rate down out of that elevated zone, and when you do, the light goes out and distraction fades. But we tie in this element of biofeedback into a ton of different environments, a ton of different ways of getting the user to actually change their environment, a little bit like Star Wars, as you saw on the newsletter email that was sent out. You're actually able to alter your environment in virtual reality by changing your internal state. So we're pretty excited about that. When we did it with the equipment that we use, we were told by the company no one had done that before with that equipment. And so we're super excited about that, and we just see a lot of ways this can continue to grow. And so we're offering this right now as a training tool, and what I've seen that's been really impressive is people who train in virtual reality with biofeedback actually pick up the skills a lot faster, and they master them more fully, which was quite a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting that result, but I think when you're really immersed in what you're doing, your ability to tap in, especially at the initial stages, is much higher. And so, you know, we don't just use the equipment that I have that I was trained in the Olympic Training Center, but we use that as a baseline of which to compare all the other devices. So we've gone through many of the devices on this list to compare the data. I'm not going to name names, but you'd be surprised about some of the consumer devices out there that are not giving you the quality of data you would expect. And that's something that's really, really important to us, and a foundation of our company is that quality of data is absolutely essential. If we're training people at the highest level of their profession, we got to be giving them precise information, because the difference between the very best and the second best is so small. So if you're missing data and you're not training accurately, you're not only running the risk of not getting better, but you could get worse. And so that's something we take very seriously, and we examine all the things on the market in terms of how we can scale out our offering and offer to as many people, but we don't sacrifice quality. And so how does this really look? How do we do what we do? We deliver large-scale training programs to corporations, individuals, students, athletes, anyone who is in a high-stakes, high-pressure, high-demanding environment and wants to be better. You know, we believe that wellness and performance are incredibly linked, that if you're under a tremendous amount of stress, and it's not just our belief, this is shown in the research, you're going to be more distracted, you're going to be less present, you're going to be less effective, and you're going to be less happy. And so all the things we do and why VR is so exciting to us is that it allows us to really train people to apply the skills into real-world environments. Not just talk about them, not just like fill out a worksheet and develop some skills, but to actually put them into action and actually monitor their progress of making that meaningful change. So we go through it in a couple different formats. One, we offer a big group workshops. That's where in front of a group of people we'll go through different mental skills you can use. We'll get someone up on stage, we'll demo biofeedback, usually ask the audience to make them sing a song that gets them pretty nervous, and the crowd has a fun time with that. And we can see the dramatic shift, and so the whole audience learns that principle. And then we take them through a series of 3 or 4 group interactive exercises where everyone gets to put into play the actions and the skills that we're teaching. Once we've done it on a group level, we open it up to that organization for a select number of individuals. And we meet one-on-one and hook them up to the equipment, both the biofeedback and the virtual reality, and I coach them one-on-one, either for one session, sometimes I do follow-up Skype sessions, or I come back. I've had organizations that have me come back in for 6 weeks or stay for a week at a time and just have people filter in as they can. But it's so powerful. A lot of people I've worked with haven't even been in virtual reality yet. The first time they do, there's a huge smile on their face, and the first time they realize they can learn to control their heart rate based on real-time biofeedback in a stressful situation in virtual reality, they go home talking about it, and they say on the next session with me, I think back to that data that I saw, and when I practice at home, that guides me in my mind, that visualization. So it's really helped me in understanding how it works and sticking to it and just believing it. I think it's an interesting phenomenon that a lot of us, we know when something's helping us, but we have a hard time believing it because it doesn't always work, as nothing always does, right? We might have trouble implementing a certain situation, we start to question. But I worked with an NCAA Division I golfer, and we worked for 4 weeks, and we went through a series of visualization exercises where he actually would recall the most stressful moments when he seemed to break down on the course, and he'd be hooked up to biofeedback, and we'd watch the data just flip into the stress profile, and then we'd have him correct the visualization with some of the tools we'd worked on with biofeedback and some of the different mindset, and we'd watch it flip back. And when he saw that, he said, this really made me a believer. I knew it was helpful, but to see it, there was just no question. And he went from never having qualified in an amateur tournament, a collegiate event, which means finishing the top 30, to after 4 or 5 weeks, he won outright, finished number 1 in the field, and posted his personal record up by 5 strokes. So, this was an insanely talented individual already whose mind was getting in the way on the course. And when he had the skills he needed and had the belief in the skills and knew how they were affecting him, he was just a completely different beast. So everyone we work with, we give an app. One of the things we found in doing a lot of our market research was that companies were paying $4,500 to send individuals on a 3-day retreat or a workshop, and then they'd come home and a couple weeks later they forgot all the skills. So we really strongly believe the training extends beyond the group and individual sessions, that everyone needs repeated exposure to these skills, and so we give them an app that I've designed with the content from my career, and we put it in their hands to keep practicing, and we upload with new content. And in the near future, we will be allowing this mobile app to also be a VR app, so you'll be able to slide into the Samsung Gear or the Google Cardboard and train these skills in VR on your own. So that's something we're very excited about, and we've even set up training rooms for organizations where they get multiple headsets themselves, and the employees can take a 10-minute break, pop into the training room, go into VR, work on their physiology, and come back a little more refreshed, and we've just gotten really fantastic feedback on that. So here's some of the testimonials from some of the organizations we've worked with. It's been it's just been very overwhelmingly positive, and it's been very exciting for us. It's such a rapid growth. I started my first company last April, and then 3 months ago formed with Shay, Kevin, and Toby to really scale it up. And since then, there's just been a very positive response. So we're excited about that. And if anyone knows anyone that's interested in this type of program, we'd definitely be interested in talking to you, whether that's an individual or an organization, or if you just want to find out more about what we do or stay in touch. I love connecting people with resources to continue this training on their own or to pursue their own passion in this field. So we have our website there. We have my email and phone number, and you can feel free to reach out to me anytime. This is what I do on a day-to-day basis, and I love connecting with people, so don't be bashful. And at this time, I think we'd like to open up to questions. People have it. I'll let Bob take it from here.
Yeah, excellent presentation. Really great. So where were you when the Falcons broke down in the second half on Sunday night?
That's a good question, whether it was the Falcons or the Patriots amping up.
Well, they seem to have their stress under control the second half, but the Falcons, they didn't seem to be able to control their energy or their they just didn't perform nearly as well.
That was an incredible game. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things they're going to be looking into this off season to see how they can work on that when they get back to that position.
So something I picked up on, you said earlier, which I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, is that you've found that people that have been training in VR pick up and retain the skills more effectively. Can you talk a little? Is that all kind of anecdotal right now?
Yeah, so that's from my experience working with. I've run hundreds of people through biofeedback, and I've run a lot of people through biofeedback in VR, and it was very surprising to me the first couple sessions because when training someone in biofeedback, it can take anywhere from 3 to 5 sessions to get even some of the core foundational skills. But what I was finding is, and there's always a range, often athletes pick it up very quickly. Often, highly driven professionals pick it up very quickly. The quick learners really adapt it. But there's always, certain people that don't gravitate towards it right away. And then with those people that were kind of struggling to really, drop their heart rate down and control it, or increase their hand temperature and, relax and open up their blood vessels, get out of that fight or flight. When we put them in the VR environment and out of this maybe distracting environment into a totally controlled one where the only change was based on their body, it was night and day very quickly. Like almost immediately we saw a very different pattern on the data display. So what do you attribute that to? Is it having the headset on helps cut out surrounding distractions and noise during the training? I think it's two things. I think it's that one. It's one of the big distractions being, oh shit, what is everybody thinking about me as they watch me try to do this, right? Whether I've been at trade shows or conferences or whatever, or even just me being in the room, thinking, oh, what is Ben going to think if I can't get this? So all of a sudden now you're in a room by yourself, and when we're completely alone, we're the most free. But two, I think there's something just way more immersive and powerful and empowering about levitating balls around you in virtual reality, or turning a black and white scene into color and bringing it alive. I think there's something that makes you feel more connected to that and more in control. And the more in control you are and the more connected, the sooner you realize, oh, that didn't work. Right? So let me try this. Oh, wow, that did work. Okay, let me try that again. Okay, that works again. And that's the process of self-regulation, is making that association of, this didn't work, this did work. And that's what initially made me so interested in this was, biofeedback is really a window into the mind, where you can get instantaneous feedback on whether what you did made the mental shift that you hoped for, whereas otherwise you don't have any external feedback. You don't have anything to course correct. I mean, even if you're shooting a free throw in basketball, you can film your form and look back and say, oh, wow, my elbow was popping out. That's why I kept missing, right? Like, okay, I'm going to tweak that. With biofeedback, and say, oh, wow, like my temperature was decreasing. I clearly was still stressed. Let me try to shift this and see if that works. Let me, bring my mindset more positive in this way, or more clear in this way, or visualize this, and wow, that one really does work for me, because everyone's unique and different.
That could be an interesting, I think, study opportunity there. Um, so we have, I've got one question from Radhika. What headsets do you use? And with AR's growing market, uh, will the same structure and headset still be the right fit, or will you plan to change the structure?
Great questions. We currently use both the HTC Vive and the Samsung Gear VR. So we've been able to get data from both my equipment and some of the wearables on the market to stream live into both. I love the Vive for its ability to move throughout an environment. Now, if you haven't put on a Vive yourself, you can move through a 15 by 15 foot space, I believe, and it just, you have controllers that are completely one-to-one. If you move them at all, they move in space, so you can see what your hands are doing in front of you. And it's just a much more interactive experience. However, the price tag is high at the moment, which will come down, but it's $800 for a headset, and you need a high-powered computer. If you don't have one, it costs anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. So that price tag can price some people out, and that's why I like the Gear, because it's still incredibly impressive. I mean, you put it on and you're in a completely new space, and everyone that does it for the first time is pretty blown away. That's one of the most fun things about working with people is VR, is putting it on them for the first time. And that works off a Samsung Galaxy S6, and you can buy anywhere from $20 to $100 headsets to plug it into. So if you already have an S6, you're pretty much $20 away. If you don't, you can usually get one for a couple $100. So I like both of those headsets at the moment. I'm really excited for the Vive is coming out with a wireless headset. Right now the wire is connected to the computer, and when it goes wireless, I think that'll be extremely interesting. But to answer the AR question, yes, I think they serve slightly different functions, at least at the moment. I think both of those, augmented reality and virtual reality, will blend together not too far from now. But for people who don't know what augmented reality is, the difference is in virtual reality, you put on a headset and you see nothing but the space you're in virtually. So if you look up and down and all around, you're in a completely different room. In augmented reality, you're in the same room. You might be looking at your desk and it's the same desk, but you could see a cartoon animation walk across it or pop up out of the desk. And so you have a digital overlay over a real-world environment. We are putting together some projects right now that feed biofeedback into augmented reality for the purposes of being able to see your heart rate on your hand or desk at work, being able to send people videos, instructional videos every day, instead of sending people YouTube training videos to help them along when I'm not there. We're going to be able to send them something like at a Star Wars where R2-D2 shows Leia. I'll be able to blast out of a little QR code or a logo, and we can upload that content each day, so we can provide you with a new interactive.
So help me, Ben Barone. You're my only hope.
Yeah, exactly. No, we got Shay, Kevin, and Toby too. They're also your only hope. There's a lot of people in these fields doing awesome things, but we definitely see AR being a huge complement to the VR space, if not becoming bigger, because it's cheaper and more accessible. You just need a printed out QR code, and everyone can use their current phone to create augmented reality.
So before we wrap it up, Ben, did you want to make a mention about the app coming out, and you need beta testers, right?
We do, yes. If you're interested in beta testing, definitely reach out to me at ben@coresites.com. We're going to be looking to add some people to give us some feedback on what they think, what they'd like to see different. You always have an idea of how it's going to go in your head, and then someone tells you, hey, wait, no, it should definitely be this color. So sign up, let us know what you think, shoot me an email. That's going to be releasing in the next week or two. We're actually going through an internal beta test now, and then we're going to open it up. So we'd love to get some people's hands on it, and you get a free training device. And as I've said with this webinar, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and ask for how to use it better, how to use other skills or other resources. So we welcome that.
Well, Ben, thanks very much today. We had fantastic presentation, really fascinating stuff, and it's moving so fast, just can't even keep up. Um,
Thanks, Bob. It was great to be here. Really
uh,
appreciate it.
yeah, thank you. So, everyone, thanks for joining us today. Great having you, and keep an eye out for our next scheduled webinars, which we'll announce via email, or keep an eye on the VR Voice website. Have a great day.